All right, so it's day 24, and I wanted to make this video to talk about how indigenous, about how, wait, sorry, it's day 24, day 25 of trying to become the greatest English teacher, literature teacher alive in New South Wales. And I want to touch on the idea about how indigenous perspectives is actually the way we're going to save the world. Um, so besides the obvious ideas about like how indigenous perspectives is a relational ideology or ontology more so, and that it makes you also care about everything, and specifically the land, the country that is nourishing you, and therefore it's more sustainable as a perspective and practice of way of being than the Western colonial method, which sees land as a resource to extract. Besides that obvious point, you have the idea of ethics, and I was reading this article by Mary Graham in the journal Pahisha. It's a really cool journal, by the way. It's really nice. But she basically talks about, she compares ethics from Western ethics to Aboriginal ethics. There's not really actually a term for ethics in the Aboriginal languages that she knows of, but she does a comparison either way in using that concept. And the main conclusion that she draws, or one interesting thing that she talks about that I want to point your attention towards, is the idea that in Western domains or Western conceptions of ethics, it's seen more as an additional add on that you learn as a distinct category that you can learn, you can choose to learn, rather than an obligation that you do throughout your entire life. It's kind of what ethics is for. Here's what I mean. She says here, so in this one, you see this Western schools and universities teach separation and categorization of knowledge, delivered in the form of subjects, discrete learning areas. But all knowledge has practical applications, and when knowledge is divorced from ethics, as it so often is, the results are often devastating. I can think of, let's say, if you read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Victor creates his creature. He doesn't think about the ethical obligation that he has to obey to create that, and so he just creates something. Why? Because he wants to overcome death. It's that scientific masculine pursuit to just conquer land, conquer nature, and it's basically just you building and innovating technology in a way that you don't actually think about the consequences because you're just pursuing scientific advancements for advancements, also for ambition, right? And then today with AI as well, and the responsibilities of AI data centers is the environmental problems and all that stuff. So like, it's the today. But she says, one of the thing that she says is that this Gomeroi man, Field is a Gomeroi man and a Mackenzie fellow. Okay, his name is Field. He says this very interesting thing. It's like, I can already hear my students in the science faculty moaning at my suggestion of the inadequacies. We give students tools. What they do is what they do with it is up to them. I teach chemistry. Why should I care about indigenous culture? Or even okay, I was thinking too fast. But I'm a mathematician. Why should I discuss ethics with my students? I don't like we perceive ethics as something else other. But for indigenous perspectives, ethics is ingrained within you, and always what is good, what is wrong, what is bad, that is always going to be part of your growth and perspective, because it is your responsibility as a steward um, to take care of land, country, and your kin. Take care of your country and your kin. They call it the custodian ethics. Um, Caring for country and caring for kin, right? And so that's part of their philosophy. That's their relational ontology, in which responsibility is ingrained within them. And so ethics then becomes is a good thing to do for your country and for your kin, right? And they say that this development of an ethical self is they grow into over time to become a fully rounded human being. You know, it's a necessity to being a good human being. Ethics isn't something that you learn on the side and you study as a philosophy to learn more, right? It's a necessity. And it's not about pursuing virtue or perfecting goodness or seeking approval. It's about a proportionality exercise towards the singularity. The land is the source of law. The land, environment, nature. It's so important. I realize it now that that's part of the world that you live in, and it's a necessity. And if we don't take care of it more so and actually think beyond just environmental sustainability that you learn in year five, then we're all screwed. Okay, it's 5 minutes now. Okay, it feels so long. I thought I was gonna make it like 1 minute, but whatever. Anyways, that's my yap session. Okay, the reason why this is important for becoming the greatest English teacher in New South Wales is what do I define as the greatest, right? I define greatest as being able to great in terms of achieving the intrinsic value of literature to broaden one's perspectives and help them um, become optimize the decision making so that it's more rational and more ethical. That way, you have the greatest net possible positive benefit to the world around you. Um, that's what I perceive as one of the most fundamental reasons for learning about stories. And so, in terms of um, an ethical self, it's like I might teach them all this literature and ideas, but if they don't do anything with it, or if they use it for the wrong purposes, wrong is debatable. But what's the point, right? It's like Gert Biester says, like you got to think about you can teachers you teach them something, right? But what are they learning it for? Like you gotta always ask the purpose, right? The why. What are they gonna do with that information exactly? And so I think as a as somebody trying to become the best teacher they can, I have to always grapple with this idea of like, okay, in our Western system, we have ethics as a very categorized, distinct feature. Um, but I need to somehow grain my teaching within that ethical standpoint. And so, one practical way I can think about doing this is simply just whenever I do a text or something to learn, okay, it's like a new text, I will always preface it, begin it with like, okay, here's what you can take away. Here are the possibilities and the real world relevance of this text in terms of its themes. You can apply it to today's world, and I give them like examples of real world political events, maybe, and show them that okay, this text you're learning this text not just to for an essay, but to help you understand these real world situations more, and thereby help you be able to um, uh, have a broader perspective in which you can then act better in terms of better being more rational and more ethical. And ideally, then, that would create an environment in which I can maximize the possibilities of my student um, taking away uh, from my teaching the most positive um, information, I guess, kind of thing. Yeah. But while still maintaining their autonomy, right? I don't want to impose an ideology or perspective upon them because then they're not going to practice their critical thinking. But yeah. And so I think I have to bring back this idea of that world-centered education, world-centered education, and bring back. I need to make sure I foreground that human beings, you're thrown into a world that you didn't. But this world has limits, and education should be about empowering students to help them and identify those limits and work within those limits rather than live completely freely without limits as if that is possible and good. I need to figure out how to do that. But